welcome back to my channel. This is Lindsay from Beyond the Beauty of Lindsay, and if you're watching this, you're probably wondering, okay, who is the next interview that I'm doing, and I will be explaining that. But if you haven't yet, hit that like button down below, and make sure you're following me on all of my social media, because you will get to know more about the things that are happening right here, right now, after this video is being posted. So make sure you're doing that right here, right now. I have the beautiful Miss Stephanie West-Potter. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks,
Thank
Lindsay.
you for being here. So some of you probably are like, how do you know Stephanie? What is happening? Stephanie is like my twin
Yeah.
in another lifetime. I met her through the beginning phases of how this project happened, which I'm not going to tell you about yet, but I'm going to hint at it from Faces of Change. And she did a speaking engagement. We will get into how that even happened too. But she actually has a couple of unique little circumstances that I'm excited to share with you guys about. And she actually has a really awesome story and is continuing her story because it's not done yet. And I want you guys to really know about it. So if you haven't, make sure you follow her on her social medias, which I will be putting down below if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
And let's get into this because we have so much to tell you guys. Stephanie has so much to share. And it's no better time than now to get it started. So you ready?
Yeah, absolutely.
Alrighty. So, alright. How did you find out that you have unique circumstances? Because I already know a lot of it, but I'm going to act like I don't. So how did you find out that you have what you have, and what do you have?
Yeah, I was 12 years old when I first entered the mental health world.
Okay.
I had my first suicide attempt at 12 years old.
Wow.
And a lot of it really comes from the fact that I had no idea how to express how I was feeling. Depression at that time was not something that was talked about at all. It was like in the 90s.
Right. Yeah. And it was very much of like a stigma.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I had no way of saying what was wrong with me.
Right.
And so I took 10 Tylenol. While my parents were at their bowling league, and I was babysitting my brother and sister, and my parents came home, and I told them what I did right after because I was scared.
Right, because you started feeling it, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, it wasn't even that necessarily, because honestly, like, 10 Tylenol doesn't do a lot.
No, it really doesn't.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Don't try that.
Yeah, no. But in the mind of a 12-year-old, that was like
that was the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I told my parents what happened, and they called poison control because that was what you did then.
Yep.
There was no like Google to find out what to do. And they told my parents to just give me milk and keep an eye on me, and then call my pediatrician in the morning. And so they did all of that, and they took me to my pediatrician that day. And there were no psychiatric facilities for kids in my area. At that time, there was a psychiatric ward in my local hospital, which I had already heard about. And so I was 12 years old, and they took me, like, I remember vividly, like, the locked elevator and, like, everything that happened. And but I was the youngest person that they had ever had. It was an adult unit, and they ended up having my mom stay with me, which sounds crazy.
Minor,
yeah. And at that time, they diagnosed me with depression. Bipolar was not something that was ever diagnosed with kids at that point. And so I received treatment all through school, and my parents, my mom and I would fight all of the time. As is really common because she would,
teenager age. It's
yes,
fun. It's a fun age. Yeah.
But every time I felt like I was feeling any kind of emotion at all, my mom would be like, "Are you taking your meds? Have you been taking your meds?"
And that's what typical parents and family do, because that's what they think is what's to do to fix it. A pill is going to fix something. And that's not very true.
Yes. And
in
like
2019.
Yeah, absolutely. And like hearing my mom ask me that question, it just infuriated me so many times, because I'm like, yeah, I'm taking my meds, but I still have the right to feel emotions. Like, that's it. It is who I am. I get to feel things. And so that really put a strain on our relationship because I would be really angry all the time.
Absolutely.
And then I was like super successful all through school.
Awesome.
And I had all of these dreams and goals. And I went to the University of Kansas.
Right, which I'm so happy for.
Yes.
Tip number 1, KU is a must.
Yep. That was my plan. I had a whole life. I had my life planned out. I was going to go to KU. I would find the person I was going to marry. I was going to get married at 23 and have my first kid at 25. I had it all planned out, ready to go. And then I had my first year at KU, and I lived in the dorms, and it was kind of a mess. Yeah, so I started drinking a lot.
Yeah.
Which I thought was normal.
Which, I mean, what 19-year-old doesn't do.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah, I didn't ever drink in high school, so it was like, I get to college and I'm...
And you're technically allowed. It happens.
Yes, it's what you do. And then I was staying up all night, and again, that's just...
partying and...
Yeah, and it was just, you know, I would stay up studying and writing and doing all of this stuff.
World.
Yeah, but then the problem is that I would crash. Like, I would stay up. I realized that
highs and...
I started staying up for, like, 2-3 days at a time. Eventually, when I got to my second semester, I basically had stopped going to class completely. Like, I changed my major after the first semester because it was...
It's totally normal too.
Yeah. I was a music major, and I went from my tiny town where I was the best singer in my town to then going to KU where I was nowhere near the best singer anymore, and it was a lot to handle. The second semester, I just really stopped going to classes, and I was just living in my dorm. And at one point, I remember going to Walmart one night and buying socks and toothbrushes for everyone in my dorm because I thought they all needed them.
Okay.
And so it was just like starting to do
those little things
that didn't make sense.
And they didn't add up.
Yeah. And then about 3 weeks before the end of the semester, when it was time to figure out what I was going to do for the summer, I started hearing voices. And at that point, I got scared.
Right.
Because when you start hearing voices, you're like,
what's happening?
That's not good.
Right.
Yeah. And it wasn't like, when I hear hearing voices, like, it was my own voice.
Yeah.
Really, like
kind of beating you up, essentially.
Yeah. It was like voices over voices over voices that were just like consuming my thoughts, and it wasn't like I was...
It was like you were out of control of what was happening.
Yeah, so...
And you didn't know what is happening either.
Absolutely.
So there was no control from your end.
I had no idea. I was just terrified. And so I finished out the year without any credits at all because I didn't even drop out. I just stopped going.
Right.
So then that left all of these incomplete classes that I had. But I went back home for the summer, and I ended up telling my mom pretty quickly what was happening, and she got me into my doctor.
Which not many people have the courage to first of all acknowledge. So
yes,
for that.
Absolutely. And luckily my mom was super supportive, and I knew she understood what was going on. And my doctor at the time sent me to a psychiatric unit, where within the first day they diagnosed me with bipolar disorder. At that time, it was terrifying.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how'd that feel being diagnosed with that? Because you already have depression. Under your belt, so it was like probably here's another thing to add to my plate.
Yes,
of things I have.
I feel like when I heard bipolar, it felt like, well, first off, I had no idea what that meant.
Right.
Like, it was not something that was talked about at all.
And I'm sure from a doctor they already know, so they're like, this is what you have.
Yeah. I mean, this was 2005 at this point. Right. So, it sounds like it wasn't that long ago.
How did it feel hearing those words, you have bipolar?
Yeah, it was terrifying. Like, it felt like hearing those words, it felt like they were saying... Yeah, it felt like they were saying, like, you're legit crazy. Like, that's what it felt like in my head. That's the connotation,
unfortunately, is with it,
Yeah, and so I felt like, well, that is what my life is now. And they told me I would have to take medication to be stable and to be successful in life, and the thought of having to take something to affect my brain, like it felt like there was something wrong with me, that I had done something, that
you were the problem.
Yes, that my brain was broken.
Right.
And I was so ashamed, and I told no one in my life. My best friends had no idea what was going on.
And why would you tell someone? Because there already is that negative, and you don't quite understand it yet, and you don't know what your life is going to be, so why would you say something?
Yeah.
You still want to be treated as Stephanie.
Exactly.
I'm Stephanie, I have my own friends, I have my own life, and I don't want this to affect who I am and what I'm already doing.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I think back to that time, and I could have really used my friends.
Right.
You know, I have amazing friends, and I really wish that I would have felt like I could reach out to them and tell them what was wrong with me. Because you think about it, like, if I would have been in the hospital for some kind of physical conditions, they would have been bringing me flowers and balloons and all of this stuff, but I was hiding in a psychiatric unit where I was locked up with bars on the window.
Which is still not okay in itself. And so that breaks my heart for you.
Yeah, it was really tough. It was terrifying. And at the same time, I met a lot of people that were also hospitalized, and I was hearing their stories about their really rough lives.
Right.
And all of this stuff that they had gone through. And I felt like, well, what's wrong with me? I've had a really great life. I grew up in a great family, and
you felt loved. You had friends. And
yes, we went on vacations. Right. We, did all of these amazing things. Why am I so unhappy? And I felt like I didn't deserve to, and not in a way of like, I didn't deserve to have this. It was more of like...
But that's how you were feeling.
Yes.
You can't dismiss that.
Yes, that I don't know why I'm like this. It's not that I have experienced anything to make it count.
So then what was that change in that? Because there had to be something that clicked for you to be like, it's okay.
Yeah, it took me about 10 years.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it started when you were 12.
Yeah,
and that's really where, I mean, it didn't just start when she was 12, but that was the beginning of the process and understanding that there's something wrong.
Yes.
Because depression doesn't just mean that's one title.
Right.
That's not talked about enough. We'll get to that another day. But when you're 19, 20 now.
Yeah.
And you're going to the psychiatric ward without your mom, with just yourself.
Yeah.
And you're meeting all these people, and you're in this whole other world. But you seem to be very receptive of, I want to know your life. I want to know what's going on. But you're also probably in this mindset of, like you just said, I felt hopeless almost. And I didn't understand why I have this. And they're telling me to take medication, but I don't have any clarity, is what it seems like. I hope I'm expressing that correctly.
Absolutely.
So then what was that moment of, okay, I need to figure out how I can control this? Besides the medication, because it doesn't feel good taking medication, but what'd you do?
Yeah, and medication, like, that's an issue in itself that I would love to talk about.
Yep. And we can do that another time. But that's part of it. You gotta take medication with this disorder.
Yes,
unfortunately. But it's a reality.
And you wouldn't argue taking a medication for something that, like, let's say you have diabetes. You're not gonna, like, refuse insulin.
No, right. Absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely.
Yes. But it took me, I would say...
Acceptance.
Yeah. I was diagnosed with bipolar at 19.
Right.
And I was probably close to 30 before I even...
Wow.
Came close to accepting what was going on.
Right.
And it was a lot because no one talked about it. And I never saw anyone that was successful with a mental illness. I looked at having bipolar, having any kind of mental illness, as someone that will eventually be put in a straitjacket, locked up in a padded room.
So you really had never been around anyone else with a disability?
No, not at all.
Wow.
No, and I didn't consider myself as someone with a disability either.
Right.